The House of Commons elected a new speaker with the same old Liberal habits. Liberal MP Greg Fergus replaces outgoing Speaker Anthony Rota after Rota was made the Liberals' burnt offering in an attempt to end the ongoing Nazigate scandal raging in the House of Commons. Rota's career-ending fiasco occurred when Rota introduced Ukrainian Nazi Waffen-SS volunteer Yaroslav Hunka to a hero's welcome in the House of Commons during a visit by Ukrainian Prime Minister Volodymyr Zelensky.
But I'm very proud to say that he is from North Bay and from my riding of Nipissing-Temiskaming. He's a Ukrainian hero, a Canadian hero, and we thank him for all his service. Thank you.
Now, Hunka lived in middle-class obscurity in North Bay, Ontario, despite his war criminal past, when he was trotted out to a standing ovation during Zelensky's speech and honored for his bravery in, quote, fighting the Russians during World War II.
From the Second World War, who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98.
Now, on Tuesday, the Commons chose Fergus, the Liberal MP for Hull-Aylmer, and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's personal parliamentary secretary as the new speaker. However, if Canadians were expecting something new from the new speaker, they may not want to hold their breaths on this one. Fergus represents the Liberal status quo policies of race baiting, censorship, and fear-mongering.
Every February, I normally rise to encourage parliamentarians and Canadians to celebrate Black History Month. These are not normal times. This past weekend, a small minority thought it acceptable to bring swastikas and Confederate flags to Parliament Hill. Let's not mince words. The Confederate flag is a symbol for slavery. Whips deformed black bodies, forced labor mangled limbs, torture almost always preceded lynchings. Intellectually, I know that very, very few people today would support what the Confederate flag represented. I will assume that the Confederate flag was tolerated this weekend out of respect for the individual's freedom of expression. However, in my heart, I was left wondering, who else supports this flag? Without real-time denunciations, how am I to know? That's what scares me. Even after 188 years since the abolition of slavery in Canada, in some people's eyes, I am not equal, nor should I be free. This is why I celebrate Black history, Black Canadian history, every February and throughout the year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Let's look back at some of Greg Fergus's greatest Liberal hits, of which there are many. Let's start with the headlines. Liberal MP Greg Fergus used some of his committee time to raise the question of whether anonymous leaks to journalists about Chinese state interference on behalf of the Liberals could themselves represent a form of foreign interference. What? Now, look at this one. Cabinet pissed away our credibility in dealing with the Freedom Convoy, said the Prime Minister's parliamentary secretary. Liberal MP Greg Fergus made the remark in a text message critical of Cabinet. Put a solid RCMP or Canadian Armed Forces spokesman before the press, since we politicians have pissed away our credibility, Fergus wrote in a Saturday, February 12th text to caucus colleagues. Liberal MP Greg Fergus is also embroiled in his own ethics scandal. Look at this. Liberal MP Greg Fergus wrote a letter to Canada's state broadcast regulator, that's the CRTC, to support a television channel's application for mandatory carriage, despite federal guidelines that prohibit parliamentary secretaries from making such interventions, resulting in an ethics violation. Oh, but we're not done yet. Fergus also called it an exaggeration when Trudeau elbowed the breast of an NDP MP in the House of Commons. So what do we get today? New Liberal speaker, but more of the same old Liberal baggage. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. One of the most important things I think we do here at Rebel News is probably the most boring, and that's filing for access to information, because I think it is so important for the public to know what the government is doing behind closed doors without the prying eyes of the public and the press. I want to know what they do with your money when they think you aren't watching. If you'd like to help fund our access to information investigations, please consider making a donation at rebelinvestigates.com.